Hello, my name's Jacquelyn Perreault, and I'm the Program Director with the Hartford Project. I first attended the Hartford Project in 2009 as a high school student, and I completely fell in love with the ministry and with the city of Hartford. Throughout college, I continued to volunteer and intern with the Hartford Project, taking on a full-time position with THP in 2017. I've loved every single year of working with THP, but this past year certainly stands out as the most unique year yet. I'm excited to share how we've seen God move over the last year. Last year, THP's discipleship team chose the theme Unhindered. We chose this theme long before we knew what 2020 was going to look like or how COVID would affect so much of our lives and how everything would feel so hindered. God knew how relevant this theme would be to our team and our students, and He continued to move powerfully throughout the year. We were able to offer a variety of in-person and remote outreach events, keeping our three major components of service, discipleship, and life in the city. In May, our Service Saturday events were entirely virtual, with people participating from their homes. We saw many new people, including entire families participating, with 100 people logging in on Zoom that day. We had online worship together and then met in virtual teams to build encouragement cards, care packages, pray together, and more. In the summer, we were excited to be able to offer 3 outreach weeks. These were smaller than our usual weeks, but we were able to gather together and to do service throughout the state. We had churches participating from their local churches, participating from students' homes. We had discipleship and life in the city components, primarily online, but service projects again were offered with a variety of options for churches to choose what worked best for them. We had churches participating by building care packages. We had churches who did downtown ministry, homeless ministry in Hartford. We had churches serving with the Keeney Park Sustainability Project, and just so many options for churches to serve in the way that worked for them. Then in the fall, instead of our usual overnight weekend event, we had 2 Service Saturday events. Again, we had a variety of options to serve either remote or in person. And for the first time all year, we were able to gather together for in-person worship and prayer held outdoors and socially distanced. After so much time apart, it was really encouraging to be together, to pray together and worship together with Christians from across the state. So now I am really excited to welcome some special guests who have participated in THP throughout 2020 to share about their own experience.
One of my favorite memories from THP this year was getting to talk about all the summer themes on youth advisory Zoom calls and getting to hear about how different people were impacted by these themes and how we can make it better for THP participants next year.
THP has impacted me this year because especially during this pandemic, when it first began, like during the springtime, I remember the remote service Saturday in May. It was just a time where we all got to come together, and we were just all feeling really isolated, and it was nice just being able to connect together, even though it was remotely, and we were just able to encourage one another and invite God just to move in our communities.
Yes, THP looked different in 2020. How did it remain the same? Well, there was still a focus on discipleship of students and all people that were involved. There was still a desire to give God the glory and worship Him in everything that we did. And of course, the wonderful thing that remained the same is the passion and love for the city of Hartford and bringing the love of Christ and the gospel to the people in the city of Hartford. I saw a number of my students really grow as servant leaders, not only in their lives, but also in the youth group that I lead at Wintonbury. I really saw them step up and grow in ministry, saw them become, like I said, the leaders that we were looking for them to be within the youth group, and I think it impacted our youth ministry so far this year. So that's really exciting.
I didn't get to participate in Hartford Project directly this summer, but I'm a nurse at Hartford Hospital, and one of the great things that the THP teams worked on this summer was care packages for healthcare workers. So I was blessed to be able to take a lot of those care packages with me to work and hand them out to coworkers that were working caring for COVID-19 patients. And you should have seen the faces of tired night shift nurses when I would come in the room with a box full of care packages. And those care packages had little treats in them and little candy snacks, little coffee gift cards, but the greatest thing was every care package had a note in it that was written by one of the Hartford Project participants, you know, just letting the healthcare workers know, letting the nurses and the aides know that we were caring for them and they were being prayed for. And I have to tell you that there was more than one occasion when someone would find me hours later and say, tell that church group that we really appreciated those care packages, and that was really an encouragement to us, and that was really great that we know someone was thinking about us. So I know that those people felt the love of Christ.
In place of our usual summer block parties, we held 6 smaller distribution centers. At these events, we were able to share God's love by distributing masks, hand sanitizers, food kits, kids' activity kits, Bibles, and more. We were also excited that we were able to continue our summer internship program, welcoming 7 interns to the team this year. In a year that looked nothing like these interns could have imagined, this team was filled with such grace, flexibility, and perseverance. We saw God move in amazing ways and were continually reminded of His faithfulness.
And it was so awesome to see my team of, again, 8 or 9 people come together and make 200 care packages or so in just the span of like an hour. It was really awesome. We had like some people like making pictures over on this end, and some people putting things together on this end, and people writing Bible verses on another end. And just seeing that assembly line come together just to serve God in that small group was just, it was really spectacular.
THP definitely looked different this year because of COVID, but we were still able to connect with our youth group and with the city of Hartford overall.
Summer 2020, my youth group was able to participate in Street Church. At Street Church, we were able to feed the homeless, we were able to talk to them, we even played Connect 4, and yeah, it was just fun to get to connect with people, even with the mask, even with COVID. We were still able to talk to them, we were still able to pray with them social distancely, and yeah, it was just fun to still connect.
I think what I value most, I think value is the right word, of having the students come by with THP is that they collectively have a willingness to engage people on the street with the gospel. And it's not out of compulsion, because it's just deep down inside of them, right? It's not to do this legalistic thing and check it off. There is a real belief that Jesus Christ really is alive, and He really loves the city, and He really wants to meet people. So I love that. So it's a real faith. I also love not only the willingness to pray on the spot, but an understanding that prayer actually does something. So I'll grab people together and they'll say, hey, Bryan, could you pray for me? I'll say, yeah, absolutely. Pull the team over, they'll go and start to pray, and I just walk away and disappear. So it's the belief of the gospel, the willingness to pray. And I think the last thing that I've seen like time and time again is just this willingness and desire to share that Jesus Christ is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You know, we're engaged in lots of social work. We love to do it. We often talk about the spirit and the spoon, right? So we're bringing down the necessary things so people can eat, but they're also bringing down the gospel, and they're bringing down this love of evangelism that's springing forth from the relationship with Jesus. And that's been across the board what I've seen with the Hartford Project groups coming in.
THP has impacted me in the ministry of Calvary Church Youth Ministry, because every time, I would say this, every time we had a event, like we had a spring event, which was remote, and we had a in-person, kind of an in-person hybrid type of event in the summer, each time we got closer together, weirdly enough. The difference wasn't that great, as opposed to the past couple years where we actually did everything in person. Spiritually, especially this year, was really powerful within our group. The preaching during the THP summer outreach was very impactful for us, and after that we had some very dynamic and powerful prayers.
We saw God at work through THP this year, even though it was different. It was so worth it. I especially remember how God was working through our youth group and was able to bring us all together at Glory Chapel. And although it was an overnight thing, we saw the kids really come alive and really want to do something for the community. And we were able to go to one of the homeless shelters and organize clothing for them. And I could just see the joy on the kids' faces. In the midst of a pandemic, you wouldn't know there was a pandemic going on because they were so grateful and just happy to serve. And we were really, really blessed to be a part of it.
The way THP impacted me in the past year was just, being able to come together with a group of people my age at my church and have that week of worshiping together and serving together, even if it's in a different way this year, like making care packages instead of, going out into Hartford. It really just helps you to realize why you're serving God and just how awesome it is. It really builds your relationship with God when you're constantly doing something for Him. And it's so awesome to be around a community of believers because that's the best way to increase in your faith.
I saw the Hartford Project's theme of Unhindered really come to life this year in our summer outreach. Even though it looked different, I felt like God was not bothered. He still went through and He used the Hartford Project to serve in our city this year. It might have looked differently. We might have not had as much face-to-face contact, and we did follow all the safety protocols, wearing masks and keeping 6 feet away. But God still used these young people to come into our community and provide resources and pray over our city, and also impacted our young people by being able to pull them out of their homes in a pandemic and just show them that God can still use them in the midst of what seems like a time in our nation where our nation morale is low. God still used our young people to uplift the spirits of Hartford in our community.
I really did see the theme Unhindered come out in my students' lives. I saw them while we were doing the Hartford Project be unhindered, because even in the midst of COVID, even in the midst of the difficulty of relationships, my students and my leaders were still walking the streets, looking for people that we could pray for, sharing with people about the Love Wins places that were scattered across the city of Hartford. So they were unhindered in serving the Lord by continuing to serve the people even in the midst of COVID, and that was exciting. And then of course, that unhindered them to become greater leaders in our youth ministry, shining for Him, so that the other students could be encouraged within our youth group.
One final thing I'd like to say to THP supporters and anyone else watching along is that God can't be stopped. Even amidst a pandemic, even amidst all these trials and tribulations that we've found, God's word cannot be stopped. We are still able to serve Hartford. We can bounce back and do all sorts of different ways. We will always find another way, no matter what happens. And we can use these guidelines and all these different things that people are saying. We can do things safely and still serve the kingdom of heaven. It does not matter what guidelines people put on us. We can follow those and we can still serve God. And I think that that is remarkable. And so praise God for that we were still able to serve Him this summer. And we're going to continue to serve Him this summer and the next summer and the summer after that. So praise Jesus. Woo!